During this video segment, I want to show you how to manage the standards and benchmarks within your Curriculum Track account. So within Curriculum Track, if we go to standards and benchmarks, and for instance, science right now, these are the Texas Science Standards, and notice that we have our kindergarten scientific investigation and reasoning and kindergarten matter and energy. If we scroll down a bit further, here's first grade and so forth. We typically try to organize these standards in a hierarchy or by grade level and by courses. However, before we go any further, I want to talk a bit more about the structure of standards and benchmarks within Curriculum Track. Notice this looks a lot like a family tree, and I like to think of the structure of the content in Curriculum Track or in the standards and benchmarks as an area as a family tree, where we have three levels: strands, which are these items right here. Here's the first strand, here's the second strand, here's the third strand, and so forth. We have underneath each strand performance standards, and underneath each performance standard we have multiple benchmarks. So level 1, 2, and 3. Going back to our diagram again, we have our grandparents, parents, and children, our level 1, 2, and 3. And teachers themselves will attach benchmarks to the units. So they're attaching these items right here, the third level. And so what we like to do is we use the strands and performance standards as a way of organizing. Because if you can imagine this full list of all these benchmarks, and if you take all this categorization out of here, it would be one extremely long list of hundreds and hundreds, if not in some case thousands of benchmarks. And so this does a really nice job of organizing it. So for instance, if I want to pull up some first grade standards, I can pull up first grade and notice it brings up the scientific investigation and reasoning. So I'm choosing that strand, and notice it's a very manageable list then of benchmarks. So it's important to understand that distinction first and foremost, or not distinction, but rather the structure itself. So if we go to benchmarks, you'll notice underneath benchmarks, we have our standards and benchmarks where you can view those. That's where all teachers have that ability. But you also have the ability to manage strands, level 1, level 2, level 3. You can delete the level 3, you can import level 3, you can export the data as well. And we say import and download benchmarks, but it's really all three levels that you'd be doing there. Now, when you look at your copy of Curriculum Track, you very likely don't see a lot of these items. You probably see the standards and benchmarks as well as the available standards listing, but that might be it. And that's because by default, we turn those tools off for all of our new Curriculum Track schools. The reason why we do that is because it becomes very dangerous for you to have the ability to edit any of these, as an example. So if I come in here and I edit this and do something like this, then all the teachers will see that change. It's going to change it everywhere that benchmark or strand is used. And to be honest, managing the strands maybe isn't quite as dangerous as the ability to manage benchmarks or to delete multiple benchmarks. You could actually come in here and say, well, I want to delete these, and I want to delete a bunch of them here. But now if I would go ahead and click Save, then those benchmarks would be gone. And if teachers had already attached to those benchmarks, it would be completely gone. So we recommend that you do not manage this content, but instead you rely on our support team to help you with that. We either do that very inexpensively if it's actually preparing data, but really for the most part we don't even charge for this to help you manage some of this content and to import data and so forth. However, if you do need to do it on your own, you have the ability to manage strands, like I said. You can come in and find any of the strands that are in here. and you can edit. Each strand will have a strand label and a strand description itself. So in here the label is sc.k.sir and the description is right here. And you can edit any of those. If you want to see the bench or performance standards underneath any of these, I can click on that and notice there's 4 performance standards under that strand. And I can edit or delete those. And then I can even go another level down and go to the benchmarks. And I can edit and delete those. Or if you want, you can do the same thing by going to benchmarks, choosing that same strand, choosing that first benchmark, and it gets there as well. By the way, if you don't choose a performance standard, it's going to show you all the benchmarks in that strand. If you don't choose a strand, it's going to show you all the benchmarks K through 12, all the way through. So it's a pretty long list. Again, red X means that it's going to delete. Are you sure? No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. Edit means you can change either the description right here or the label right here. And again, we strongly recommend that you're very, very cautious if you do this. We already talked about deleting multiple benchmarks. If you wanted to import benchmarks, and again, if you prepare the data yourself, and there's a video on how to prepare the data for uploading, we can actually do the uploading for you at no cost. We do that again because we just know it's a lot safer for us to do it. There's just a lot of instructions here. And then you can also download the data if you want to. So for instance, if I want to download a copy of these science benchmarks, I can do that. And so let's download it. It prepares or downloads it right into Excel. So there's what I just downloaded. So it's kind of nice. You can get at those if you need to. And then we also have the available standards listing here. And there's another video on how to use the available standards listing to see all the standards that we have available and to order any of those as well. Now, I mentioned that you don't have most of these turned on. If you watch this video and fully understand the ramifications of managing benchmarks and deleting them, editing them, and so forth, and you're willing to take that responsibility, just submit a support ticket to us saying that you watched the video and you understand the concerns, but you still would like those tools turned on for you, and then we will go ahead and turn those managing tools on for you, and you can do that work on your own rather than relying on us. This now concludes this video segment.